Labour unions and employers in the steel and engineering industry have kicked off wage talks for 2024 today. Workers are pushing for an inflation-linked wage offer that will take their economic hardships into consideration, while employers have urged unions to moderate their wage expectations. Now, the industry was hit by a strike action over wages in 2021 when workers downed tools in a wage dispute that dragged for nearly 3 weeks, costing the industry more than 500 million in lost revenue. SABC News Economics reporter Katlego Legodi has more for us.
The 2021 multi-year agreement in the metals and engineering sector comes to an end, this being an expiry date of the 30th of June 2024. But in the lead up to that particular expiration of that particular date, solidified in 2021, we see role players in the sector trying by all means to find each other. Today marking day one of the bargaining, this being the wage negotiations in this sector. And this is where we find role players, unions, employers, some of them having come here very early in Boksburg to try by all means to get the best wage deal for their workers. There's no doubt, and it's common knowledge by now, that the steel and engineering sector has not done well for quite some time. The economy has not moved in a way that would see these sectors coming through for the workers. And on top of it, we've had load shedding coupled with Transnet issues there that have affected logistics and a move within the steel and engineering sector. But we see the employer, SIFSA, coming through here and urging really this workers to approach this particular wage negotiations with that in mind. I'm going to bring into conversation this afternoon with us Mr. Lucio Trentini, who's coming through as the CEO of SIFSA and the chief negotiator here. We see you saying that workers should approach this particular wage negotiations with that in mind, an open mind, looking at where we find ourselves now. You represent about 18 of those employers that would also want to find joy in terms of what comes out of this particular process. Welcome to the SABC. Lucio, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to really say to the viewers that today is the culmination of almost 6 months of work behind the scenes around talks to get the negotiations off on the right foot. We started these discussions in October last year. We were able to do a lot of groundwork, culminating in that process with the signing of a process or relationship agreement. And one of the things that we agreed was to set ourselves a deadline to try and wrap up these negotiations in 3 sessions. Today is the first of those 3 sessions, following a pre-bargaining conference that we held on the 7th of February. And today is the opening stance by all the role players in the sector. And this is a huge sector. There's 9,000 companies, almost 230,000 blue-collar workers spread throughout South Africa. It's a sector that is worth 900 billion rand in terms of sales or revenue to the fiscus. And the last thing that this industry needs is a repeat of what happened in 2021, where we had a 3-week strike. No one wants that. The industry, as you correctly characterized, is not a sector that's doing particularly well at the moment. There are massive problems around us, more important issues that we would like as collective bargaining partners to get our teeth into, issues around infrastructure, economic growth, how we can play a part in developing an industrial policy for this industry. Today's discussions, we're halfway through today. We still have some time to go, but the atmosphere has been congenial. It's been very interactive, and I think I'm very optimistic that we might just be able to pull a rabbit out of this hat. We've never been able to conclude an agreement during the currency of an existing agreement. As you correctly said, that agreement lapses on the 30th of June, and just maybe, there's enough goodwill in the room today that we might just be able to deliver on that objective.
Is there any, bearing in terms of where we're going with the elections, in terms of you pushing to make sure that there's the finalization of this process before we go to the elections? What does this particular process where we find ourselves politically present to you guys as the ones that are within this sector?
So for us and the unions, I mean, bearing in mind, we are negotiating with some of the biggest trade unions in our sector. NUMSA is a part of SAFTU, NUM is a part of COSATU, Solidarity, MEWUSA, UASA, and others. Everyone, including the employers, would want to settle these negotiations by the 8th of May, the latest, because we are aware that there's an election on the horizon on the 29th of May. And if we can, we'd like to get all the work done in terms of processing an agreement for gazettal and extension before the end of May. If we can do it before the 29th of May, that would be even better.
Just before we let you go, Lucio, we've heard from the Labour side in terms of what their expectations would be and what they're bringing to the table. Let's hear from you as the employer. What are you proposing in terms of where we find ourselves, looking at where we come from, that 2021 agreement?
So 2021 was a watershed agreement. We were able to achieve a number of concessions that we had not been able to achieve in the lead up to the 2021 round of negotiations. We have a very comprehensive set of terms and conditions of employment, including how wages and wage increases could be addressed.